Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending this webinar this afternoon. Appreciate your attendance, and hopefully we can all learn something together. Just a little bit of background. First off, I just want everybody to know that Chris and myself, we are not in any way affiliated with Tyler Technologies, nor any of our family members. We don't own any Tyler Technology stock. We're not affiliated with Microsoft as well. We're just Munis users. And I just kind of wanted to clear that up in the beginning as well. When I first posted this out on the Tyler community, I had a lot of interest from various Munis users across the United States asking how I built some of these reports and what I was using. And I decided what I would probably do is just put like a quick webinar together to kind of show you some of the tools that I did to generate those reports that are probably, in my opinion, a little bit better than any of the tools that are available out there right now. So Chris, if you want to go ahead and move into the next slide. A little bit about myself. I'm the systems administrator at Bonneville County, Idaho. I oversee all the software for the county, both the installation and the training as well. And I also serve as a city council president for the city of Ammon. My third term will expire next year. And then I'll be done with that portion. And the reason I put that there is because I think that gives me a little bit more of a unique perspective on what kind of reports that elected officials look for and what kind of reports that department heads look for. So I can see both sides of the fence and kind of design them that way. In my past life, I designed and programmed and did a lot of supply chain management for Microsoft and for Hewlett Packard and Creative Labs, and particularly just working with just-in-time inventory models for those companies. I've asked Chris to be on this with me as well. He's been helping me build these reports a little more in the complex formulas that are above my head. And so, Chris, your turn.
Excellent. So my name is Chris Talby. I'm a business intelligence analyst. So I've done work for companies like Abbott Labs, Public Storage, General Mills, building reports, dashboards for really any segment of your organization. I've also worked with counties for local governments. A particular county up in Washington did a workforce analysis for them, and I'm Microsoft Certified Solutions certified in business intelligence reporting, and that's me.
A little bit about Bonneville County, just to kind of give you some perspective on the data that I use in those reports. A county right now has a little over 580 FTEs and a population of 120,000 residents. Our budget for fiscal year 2019 was 90 million. On October 1 of 2017, we went live with Munis financials only. And then the following year, we went live with the payroll module. Currently, we are a SaaS client and we use version 11.3. We will be upgrading to 2019, probably late next year is our time frame for that. And that is not the only Tyler product that the county currently uses. We also have implemented and are using Eagle Recorder, Odyssey, EnerGov, and New World. Chris, next slide. I think to kind of give you an idea of the problems that we had when we first went live with Munis, it wasn't so much on the data entry or the processing of programs inside Munis. It was more of getting the information out of it and getting it in the hands of our decision makers. We had a heck of a time trying to figure out how to get the information out, and we mainly just relied on using the Excel export function inside Munis. We'd export it into Excel. We had to create a lot of pivot tables, and it just wasn't working very well for us at that point. We worked with some of the report writers at Tyler using SSRS. The problem I found out with SSRS that I didn't like, it was a little bit clunky, it was cumbersome, and I wasn't able to get live data in there that I wanted to. So then we kind of moved into using cubes. That was a much better way of getting information into the spreadsheet, But again, the cubes didn't have all the detail tables that I was looking for in trying to generate reports. It had most of them, but not everything that I needed. And it wasn't, it was more like static information where we had to go out and refresh the data each time that we wanted to build another report. So what I was looking for in the last couple of years was a reporting system that was much faster. It was easier to use, it was easier to program, and it could be custom made and tailored for different departments and their uses. But not only that, when a department individual wanted to use a report, it needed to be like a one-click, and it needed to have some graphs and visualization to it too. So not so much just the report, but I wanted data visualization with it as well. And not only that, we had requests from a lot of our elected officials to be able to push that information out onto mobile devices such as, smartphones or tablets. Okay, Chris. So in April of 2019, I started experimenting with some different data visualization softwares that could connect directly with the Munis SQL server. Some of those I looked at were like Google Analytics, Dundas software, Zoho, some of those things. And I found that Power BI was a lot easier to connect into the Munis SQL database than any of the other softwares and download that data in. And I'm not sure if it's because it's Microsoft SQL and Microsoft Power BI seem to work better together, but that's what I found in doing that. So we adopted as a county Microsoft Power BI as our data visualization software that we wanted to use. And the one thing that I really appreciate about Tyler Technologies and Munis is after going in and looking at a lot of those tables, they're very clean. You don't have to do a lot of manipulation and cleanup with the data tables that are inside Munis. And so I do appreciate that part of the Munis software. Okay, Chris.
Excellent. So I'll just give it a really brief overview about what Power BI is and how you can get started with it. So Power BI is free to download, the desktop version. And just kind of a note for those Mac users, unfortunately it is not available on Mac, at least the Power BI desktop is not. If you have questions about how to get around that, I have some suggestions, and so feel free to reach out. But Power BI desktop is free to download. You can download this if you just look up Power BI online. And when you download it, and the first time you open up, this is what you'll see. You'll see this empty canvas, and you'll have all these different options. And you notice that it actually is pretty familiar to Excel. And there's a lot of features and aspects that are very Excel-esque, although it isn't identical. And this tool was really built for business intelligence and being able to take your data and very easily convert it into reports and charts that you can get up and running very, very quickly. Now, once your report is built, you'll start to look a little bit more like this. So this is a actual report that has been built for the Bonneville County on their accruals. So you can see we have various visuals on here. We have KPI cards. We have slicers along the top, and we can add in pictures. We have the logo of Bonneville County there in the top left, and you can see along the right-hand side all the different visualization types. And what's really neat about Power BI is that a lot of the functionality that's in here is drag and drop. So if you wanted to add a pie chart, you'll drag that pie chart icon from that right-hand panel onto your canvas, and there it is. And then you can drag and drop your data right onto whatever visual that you have, and it'll start to fill itself out. So it's very easy to use and very intuitive to get visuals on the canvas immediately. It's a really neat tool. Now, connecting to Power BI from Munis, and you connect directly to the SQL Server. So there's a couple of steps with that here, and obviously this is very simplified. There's only so much that we can cover here in the short amount of time that we have for this webinar. I'll go back up here. So along the top, you have your option to get data in the top left-hand corner. And once you've selected that, you have various options for your data sources. And one of those options is your SQL Server database. And once you get into there, it asks for your server and your database. And you have the option of importing your data or direct querying your data. And again, I won't get into a lot of the details here, but as you Once you click OK, it'll ask for your credentials, and the credentials used for that are the same credentials that you use to log into your Munis system. And once you've done all of that, you've validated yourself, and by the way, you will need to be on the Tyler Tech VPN to be able to get the data into this report, and the account that you're accessing these reports from need to have the report writer access. And Brian can correct me if I've misspoken there on any of that.
No, you haven't, Chris. And the thing to keep in mind is you need to go to secure.tylertech.com to create that VPN if you're a SaaS client. If you are on-prem, then you just work with your IT department to access the database directly.
Excellent. Tracy Felder asks, is there sound? Tracy, if you're not hearing, it could be an issue with your speaker. Yeah, so once you validated, you'll get a list of all of the data tables that are within your Munis system, or at least that you have access to, and then you can start to dig into the different data tables that you have, and this is where the data dictionary will really come in handy for you, and you can start to see which tables you might need for your different reports and how they link to each other, and what data you might need from each data table. So once you import, oh please.
Rick asked a question: if we do direct query, do you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah. For the reports that we've built, we are not using direct query, and there's a number of reasons why we aren't using direct query in the current reports. There's quite a few limitations by using direct query, and we can go through those kind of on an individual basis, but we've elected to do the import of the data for these reports. And what we'll get to later is that even though it's not a direct query, the data is still updated up to 8 times a day. And so you're still getting the most up-to-date data hourly, and it saves the system just a lot more computing power that way. Yeah, so good question, Rick, thanks for that. So once there's quite a few questions. So I'll address a lot of these questions here at the end, just so we can get through the majority of this content here. No worries. So once you've imported the data, this is what it looks like in Power BI from the data view. So you'll see all of your columns here and all of the associated data in here. And there's another view where you can actually start to connect these data pieces one another, similar to what you might find in well, it is a relational database, and so a little bit of knowledge of how databases functions is helpful as you do that. And some of those things you can pick up pretty quickly, and we're happy to provide some more information on how some of that works out. Anything I'm missing here, Brian?
No, I think that's good.
And the other nice thing about Power BI is that you can do all of your data cleansing operations within Power BI itself. And so what you're viewing here is the data query, the Power Query editor. And so you get your data, and on the right-hand side, you can see that there's applied steps. So if there's any transformations that I need to apply to the data as it's coming into Power BI, this is where I'll do it. And what's really neat is that as data comes in, I'll apply transformations, and then any new data that comes in after that are going to receive those same transformations going forward. So I'm not having to do any of the transformations going forward. But in the case with Tyler Tech, there weren't very many transformations that needed to be done, which is really nice because the data was already in a format that was almost ready to be visualized in Power BI. There were a couple of transformations that we did apply as we were building out these reports, but for the most part, the data was pretty clean and it was pretty ready to be visualized. Okay. So the other thing that is important to note about Power BI is that just using the data right out of the box as you get it from your data source, in this case from Tyler Tech, there will be some calculations or measures that you want to be able to build that aren't going to be a drag and drop. And so here's where a little bit of kind of the business intelligence expertise really kicks in as these reports are being built. So DAX, data analysis expressions, DAX for short, is the language that Power BI uses. Is actually a language built specifically for building dashboards and building business intelligence reports. And so there are some very, very simple metrics like the one you see here for a sum, where you maybe you just want to look at the sum of the gross amount of your the amount you've spent in a given month. So that would be a very simple expression that you could write, but some expressions get more and more complicated. So let's say you wanted to look at the total revenue in year to date with a certain filter applied to it, and it compares itself to the previous year. Things where it starts to get a little bit complicated, or you have a little bit more complicated DAX expressions, and that's where you kind of Power BI becomes a little bit less new user friendly, and we can talk more about DAX expressions perhaps at a later point, but it's important to note that the DAX expressions are really important in building really comprehensive and robust reports that are going to serve your county the way you want it to. All right, so I'm going to turn the time back over to Brian. He's going to actually give some live demos of some of the reports that have been already built, and he can walk through some of the functionality and some of the ways that Bonneville County is using them currently.
All right, thanks, Chris. And I don't want anybody to look at those DAX expressions and go, oh my gosh, I got to learn how to do that. Since we've kind of posted this, let me make sure I get my screen up here. We've been contacted by quite a few other entities that said, would you guys be willing to build some of these for me? And the answer is yes. We would be open to doing that for you guys as well, so you don't have to learn how to program in DAX and make new measures and formulas that way. So just keep that in mind, and you can now sit back and enjoy the presentation. Here's some reports that we built. One of the basic ones that we had come in from our clerk's office was, we can't see our cash balance in all of our funds. Is there a way that we can build something to see that? And so right here inside Power BI, this is called, after the reports are built, they're published into the cloud, and they're now ready for user consumption. Right here is our cash balance one, and we can select either our fiscal year that we want to look at. For example, we want to look at 2019, and I'm in the current expense fund, which is one of our bigger funds in the county. It automatically calculates, it goes out and grabs those tables out of Munis, shows the beginning balance, the debits and the credits that happened in that time frame, and the end balance. Let me get back to 2019 here. We built a visualization here that kind of shows the previous year and the current year. And as you see, as I hover over these, a little box pops up and instantly grabs those numbers. So you can see it just on the fly by moving your mouse over the graphs. Down here, we just calculated a burn rate. This is how fast you're burning through the cash between the previous years. And down here again is another line matrix as you hover over, just kind of doing a year by year comparison. So what we did is we designed these so it kind of gives you an overview. As you can see on the bottom, there's an overview tab. And then if you want to get into the details of this fund in this year, you can just click the detail. And we're now into the detail portions of the fund. And it tells us again our beginning balance, the debits and credits, the net change, and the end balance. And then over here on this side gives us all of the journal transactions that happened during that time period for this particular fund. And you can see them on this side. Another one that we built is revenue, so we can see exactly what's coming in on any given period of time, fiscal year, fund, or department. For example, I'm just leaving this as all funds, all departments, all periods. We're just going to look at fiscal year 2019. And if I wanted to look at a specific pay code, object code, which is our tax revenue, I can just type in the object code and instantly it all comes in, and you can see that we don't have our tax revenue in for 2019, But in 2018, here's the revenue. Here is what it was in 2017, and here what it was in 2016 and in 2015. And we kind of give you the net change in each of those areas. If I wanted to look at just a particular fund and the revenue that came in on that fund, let's just go down here and let's pick our, let's just look at the waterway fund. So this is our waterways fund. You can see the revenue that came in for 2019-18, and we build these so they have drill down features in the little pitchfork that if you drill down, it will expand it, and I expand one more, and now I can see all the object codes that made up the revenue for that particular revenue fund. So we have the breakout of the object codes on this side as well. On the vendors portion, this is what we built here for a lot of our vendors that do business with Bonneville County. What we do is we have a high level of the total purchases, and so if I wanted to look at a particular department, let's just select one here that we can show. Let's go into our clerk, auditor, recorders. So, and you can see as I select these funds how fast that data visualization changes as I fly between fund to fund. It's instantly, pretty slick, pretty quick. So, but let's go back into the clerk, auditor, recorder. This breaks it out by the object code of all of our expenses. Again, this is our current year versus last year and the percent of change between the 2 years. If I wanted to look at our top 10 vendors for that department, I just select the vendor here, and here's our top 10. If I wanted to look at by object code, there it is by object code. And again, we're just in this one department, so I was just going to show it by department. If I had this set as all, I would see all of our top 10 departments and find out who's spending the money the fastest. Again, I can go into the detail portions of it, and let me select, let's go back into our clerk, auditor, recorder. And this is the expenses for 2019. Again, this matches the overview from current year to last year. We can see a month over month from last year versus this year here. And again, as I do that, you can see that little black box pops up and you can see instantly the data for that month. Up here, this is our vendor name, and you can see in here like this one right here, it says this is off of our credit card, supplies office for $4,300. But if I wanted to know what made up that balance there, I would select that. And then down here, it breaks it all out for me. So now I can see it by the invoice number, what the object code was, what the Munis voucher was, the batch date, check number, the date that the check was written, the amount, what the comment was, and which clerk did it, and if that check cleared or not. As you can see right here, we have a check that has not cleared. So that's what we have in our vendor ones. Another one that we ran into is trying to figure out stale dates. So our clerks wanted the ability to be able to search all cleared checks in a date range. So if I wanted to look at all of the checks that have not cleared, I keep clicking that too hard there. There we go. And if I want to put in a date range of, I'm just going to go 19 and 1. So these are all the checks that haven't cleared through our Munis system from 5/1 through 9/1 of this year, and you can see the total amount here. The nice thing about Power BI is you can filter and sort based on the columns. So if I wanted to look at it by date, I can click that button there, and now it'll filter it by date. If I wanted to look at it by amount, I can just click this little filter button right there, and now I can sort by amount. The nice thing about Power BI in all of these reports, you can export this data out by just clicking this ellipsis up here at the top, and it will give you an option to export the data in either a spreadsheet format or a CSV format. Another report that we built that's been very useful is a payroll report. And since we only went live in 2019, I only have 2019 data. But so for the year, this is how much the county is paid out in wages, and then we broke it out in regular wages versus overtime. This is how much the county is paid out in employer deductions, and this is how much the employee is paid out as well. We break it out by the pay type, so your pay codes are right here, and the amounts by each one. And we also break out the deduction by deduction type, both on the employer side and the employee side. For budgeting purposes, I wanted it broke out one more time because we budget based on these object codes. And so this now gives me the amount on our budget items, both on the pay type and on the deduction type. So for example, if I wanted to see what we paid our, let's say the sheriff office in a particular quarter, I just come up here and say, let's pick the first quarter in 2019, and I want to come down and look at my sheriff law enforcement. There we go. So this comes in instantly. So this is what we paid out on the first quarter for sheriff law enforcement, and you can see that we had it January, February, March. If I wanted to drill that down in the pay periods, now I can see the pay periods that I did in each of those months, or I can drill back up in that graph as well. So this breaks it out by, there's the employee deductions, there's the employer, there's their overtime, and then there's the regular wages. On the details tab of that, when I go in here, it still carries over from the front page, but now I'm able to see it by individual, and I can see the hours worked and the total pay. If I wanted to just see what Jason did for that first quarter, if I just click on his name, instantly it will break out his pay type for me, so I can see what we paid him in all that time. And I can also see the check number that we paid him on, the payroll run date, the gross pay, his deductions, and the net pay. I put a little pie chart in here so you can see what little sliver of he was inside that entire payroll. And to come back, I just simply click his name and everything comes back in. So if I want to look at Kevin Casper, I can look at that real quick, and I can tell you that, you know, overtime, he did a little over 1,800 in overtime and 1,800 in back shift overtime in that quarter. If I wanted to drop that down, if I wanted to erase that, let's just say, and I wanted to go on a particular month and see what we did in April, go back into Kevin Casper, there it is. So instantly, that's what I liked out of Power BI, is I could just do a one click and see exactly where I'm at with everything, and I could get the visualizations out of that as well. So that's just a little flavor of what we have in the payroll. I'm not sure if a lot of other entities have to calculate work comp premium tax by risk code. We have to here in Idaho. It would take our clerk almost a week to gather this all up, because you had to go through and export out everybody that had a specific risk code, and then we had to calculate how many employees had that risk code. Then we had to find out how much their wages was in that time period in that risk code, and it just took a long time. But now with Power BI, I can just go ahead and select the quarter, because we have to do it by quarter. So for the third quarter, there it is, we're all done. That's our work comp premium tax that we have to file with the state of Idaho, and it took 2 clicks and we're done. The 941s, I'm going to make this a little bit cleaner for our clerks, but these are the questions on the 941, question 1, 2, 3, 5A, 5C, 5E, and 6. We programmed Power BI to go ahead and just answer those questions for us. And this is very, very almost to the penny as what Munis displays as well. And then this is the Schedule B side of it that you need to file with the 941s. And then on the IAC unemployment insurance that we have to file with the state of Idaho, they want it by org, number of employees, minus the elected officials, and then they need that also number times 0.4%. And if we wanted to look at what we had to do in the second quarter, I just come up here, I select quarter 2, there's my information, it's done. And if I needed to drill down and look at the names in there, I've got the names now, and I can drill back up as well. So Power BI is very, very powerful with the data that Munis feeds it. And as you can see, just by one click, I've got it right at my fingertips. And again, if I need to export out any of the data, I just click that little 3 ellipses out there. I can just export the data, and I get it in a CSV or Excel format, whatever I want. So that's the reports I wanted to demonstrate for everybody today. I've got others that we've done, such as bank balances and expenditure reports and things like that. But for the sake of time, I just kind of wanted to give you a flavor of what we've done so far.
Yeah, out on the payroll, we're in the middle of building. In the middle of building a report within payroll that shows the forecasted payroll out, however many months that you have data, and that's going to be based on when employees are expected to receive increases in their wages, and then you can actually see what your payroll is expected to be in the coming months, and that all happens with the click of a button automatically, basically.
Okay, Chris, you want to go ahead and take that now?
Yep, here we go. All right, so we talked a little bit about the capability of the reports on mobile. So for each report, it can be configured particularly for a mobile device. So we have our accruals report, which we actually didn't show today, but we configured all of that onto a mobile view. And then, so the image you're seeing on the left-hand side there is kind of the process of putting all of those visuals that we'd already built for the desktop and just put into a mobile format. And then on the mobile device, that's what it looks like there on the right-hand side. And you can scroll down and you can see all those, and that's fully interactive as well on the mobile device. You can still use those slicers. You can slice by year or apply any of the filters that you have in the desktop version. So yeah, even the mobile device is very robust. It can do everything that the desktop version can do. Brian covered a few of these points here. There's a couple of other things that we can mention as well. So these reports, so like Brian mentioned, the clerks had to build these reports manually in Excel, and now Power BI does it, and they just export it, and they have all the data they need to report. And on top of that functionality of being able to export those to a CSV or an Excel, you can export them to a PDF, or you can export some of these reports directly into a PowerPoint presentation. So if you need to give a presentation on some of these metrics or calculations, you can. There's an option within Power BI to just export that right into PowerPoint, and it creates you your own PowerPoint presentation, and you're good to go. And then lastly, you can embed these reports into websites. So if you have a county website and you want to be displaying some data to the whole county, we can have those embedded directly into your website, and that data will update automatically, and any user that goes on your website will see those live and be able to interact with those based on the interactivity that you've already built into that report. So someone had asked a question just a little bit earlier about the refreshes. So this is the kind of the refresh settings, and what you're seeing here, this panel is in the Power BI service. So we talk about Power BI desktop, that's where you build the reports, that's free. And then in the Power BI service, that's where you push them out into the cloud and give access to whoever needs them. And you can set up how often these reports refresh within the Power BI service. So this is just an example pane here. So that I've set up 4 times, 6, 8, 10, and 12 p.m., a.m. and p.m. And what happens is whenever we hit 6 a.m., it's just going to refresh, grab the newest data, put it into your report, and push it out. So all of that's automatic. You don't have to worry about any of that, and that's all built in. As far as the pricing goes for Power BI, like I said, Power BI Desktop is completely free. You can go online, you can download that, and start playing on Power BI, zero cost to yourself. Where Microsoft monetizes is in the Power BI service. So to be able to push out these reports from desktop to the cloud, and then from the cloud to the actual consumers of these reports, is $10 per user per month. So everyone that's going to be interacting with these reports individually will need a Power BI Pro license. And the first 60 days is free if you just like to experiment with it, see if it's right for you. But then after that, it's $10 per user per month. Anything I'm missing there, Brian?
Nope, I think that that covers it there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other details that we can cover as far as pricing goes on Power BI. For example, if you're hoping to embed some of these reports into your websites, depending on how you're doing it, that could be no additional cost on top of what you're paying for your Power BI Pro license. It all just depends on the kind of thing that you're hoping to do there. Okay. So Brian, I'm going to turn this back over to you to go over this.
So just gonna kind of, you know, that old saying, tell them what you're gonna tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So that's kind of what this conclusion is. We've really enjoyed as a county working with Power BI in connecting with Munis. I've saw a couple of questions. I think Tim, you just questioned about connecting Power BI. If you are a SaaS client, you need to call SaaS support. I think it's 3 and then 9 when you dial in. There are some different settings that they have to do on reporting on their end to allow you to connect Power BI to your SQL server in the cloud if you're SaaS. So Tim, I'd probably encourage you maybe just to call support and make sure, just tell them you want to get the SQL views and you want to be able to connect to that, and they'll add your account. I know they had to add me to a couple more settings in order for me to connect. So you might want to try that. The DAX formulas and queries, they're limitless, and you can create any kind of report that your mind wants if you know how to do the formula and the queries. So that Power BI is really great with that. We love the reports that come with graphs and charts and colors. I mean, we live in a visual world, and that really helps us identify problems on the fly when we're looking at the reports when it pops out to us in a color. The reports are very mobile friendly. We already pushed those out to tablets. Our county clerk had a big clerks meeting in Boise, Idaho last month, and she took her Surface Pro and had her reports right there, and she was already looking at the payroll reports like within minutes after we had already run payroll. There is a little bit of a learning curve and familiarity that you need with the DAX programming. That's kind of where I probably got in a little bit over my head as I started putting this together myself and building some of those reports. I was getting kind of what I wanted, but I wanted more, and I just didn't have time to learn DAX programming. And that's when I synced up with Chris, and Chris was able to help me put these together in a way that I really wanted to see them. And as we get more collaboration from a lot of our elected officials and from our department heads, we're able to keep building upon what we already have. So one thing that we're doing right now, Chris and I are, we've created some reports now that can be fed by multiple data sets from different government entities, just because we've had other entities ask us, hey, can you build these for me? I don't really want to learn DAX coding. And the answer is yes, we can. And we just needed to figure out a way to make it a lot simpler. And we've already done that. So we do have some reports that can just take the data sets right in, and away we go. So if you are interested in learning and bypassing that learning curve of Power BI, and you just want Chris and I to help you create those reports and manage them, I've left my email there at the bottom of the site. I won't be doing this as a Bonneville County employee for obvious reasons. I'll just be doing this in my spare time when I'm not on the clock with Bonneville County. Okay, Chris.
Perfect. All right, so now we can answer some of these questions we've got here. We've got quite a few questions. I'll answer this question by Kelly Lucy. She asks, do we still use a per user per month licensing structure, or do we go with an enterprise licensing model? So what she's referring to is if you're doing a per user, it's $10 a month. Enterprise license is $5,000 a month. So currently Bonneville County is doing a per user per month licensing structure. If Bonneville County, for whatever reason, were to exceed 500 employees, 500 individuals wanting to access these reports, then being on the enterprise license would be worth it to them. But until that time, doing it on an individual basis is the best way to go.
Okay.
So Sherry Laudner also asks, will I need a service license to view reports I create, or can I view or export reports through the free software? So if just you, if only you is consuming these reports, then it doesn't cost anything. So you can export these to your personal app workspace is what it's called, and to use your own app workspace is completely free. And so you can be configuring, doing testing, seeing if this works for you without any cost. And then once people are on board and you perhaps get some funding for these kind of reports, then you can start to get those licenses and push those out to other people. But as soon as you start sharing them with others, they will need a Power BI Pro license, and so will you.
Okay, and another question, Chris, was do I need a designated server? The answer is no. You're just publishing it out to the Microsoft Power BI cloud to be consumed.
Okay.
Let's see, when you import data, where does the data sit? Chris, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it's a little bit complicated to answer. So well, it sits in Microsoft servers, and so that part of what you're paying for the $10 a month for the user fee is access to those servers. When you upgrade to the enterprise license, you're on your own dedicated capacity is what it's called, and so all the data and all of the usage is being handled there. But when you're just on Pro and you don't have your own dedicated, it's on a shared capacity, which is shared with all the other users. There haven't been any issues with that. That's probably a little more detailed than you needed, but that's the answer.
The other question we had here is how many users do we have accessing the reports? Currently, we have 10 users. Half of those are elected officials, and some of those are department heads. We have not rolled this out to all of the department heads at this time. We plan on doing that after our new budget year, which is October 1. And at that point, we'll probably have about 22 users using Power BI. See, another question asked, how long did the development take from start to finish? I think the better way to answer that is learning the schemas and the data dictionary from Munis took probably longer than actually making the reports. It's a combination of trying to figure out where the data lies in Munis and then which one to extract and which one to join with other tables. I think that kind of takes the longest portion. I would say to make a report in Power BI, if you already are familiar with DAX and you're familiar with the tables in Munis, you could probably put a report together in about, I don't know, Chris, what, maybe 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, that's probably a good estimate.
And then you probably need a few more days after that just to validate the data. I do multiple things throughout the day, so I can't really tell you how much time I actually dedicated to some of these.
Yeah, and the assumption on that 2 to 3 days is that you have someone who's experienced in Power BI and who knows the ins and outs of it, and then also someone who understands the data schemas, understands the Munis data. It really is a collaboration there.
Yeah. Another one is when selecting a table or views, are you able to see all the views and tables? When you select, when you go into Power BI and you are looking for a specific table, you can start typing it and it pulls in similar names, so you can start searching right off of that. Once you find the right table that you want, you can click it and import it in, and then you can see all the columns that are in that table. But you can't see, I mean, when you first log in, I guess you could look through and scroll all the way through. There's about 5,200 tables inside Munis that I've seen. But I just kind of look for the one I want, I select it, I import it, and then I can see all of the columns. So no, I can't see everything. I can just see that there's 5,200 of them, and then I just highlight the one I want. Good question. Will these reports transfer to Munis 2019, or are they stuck in 11.3? I actually got a copy of the data dictionary from Munis 2019, and I've started comparing some of the table names between 11.3 and 2019, and as far as I've seen, the names are the same. So yes, as long as the names don't change and the data still flows like it is in 11.3, then yes, these reports work in 11.3 or 2019.
There will be just a little bit of configuration required from 11.3 to 2019, but for the most part, it will be identical. Okay, so both Kelly and Rulai have asked about the data dictionaries. Brian, are we able to share the data dictionaries?
Well, the data dictionaries are already in Munis. If you're in 11.3, you just go to the Tyler menu and then just type in dictionary, and it's right there. I just click it, I open it, I do search, accept, browse, and it gives me the entire data dictionary inside Munis 11.3. I haven't done it in 2019, so I couldn't give you that answer, but the data dictionary is already inside Munis, and you can access it right now.
Kelly also asks if we've published any public reports.
No, we haven't put those out on the web yet. We will be. We still just want to make sure everything's validated correctly. As you saw in our revenue report, we're still missing some revenues that we want to get in before the end of the year. So we just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before we put that out on our website for public consumption. Right now, it's all just internal. I'm not. There's a question there from, is it Cherie? Is this the same for the free software, referring to the data in the cloud? You can download the desktop version of Power BI, and you can do a user all for free for 60 days. After that, the clock runs out on you and you have to buy a user license. But Chris, I'm pretty sure the desktop version for creating is free, right?
Yes, it's free, and it will always be free. Yeah.
Okay. Where is the best place to obtain the data dictionary for 11.3? As I just mentioned, if you just go into the Tyler menu and then in the search type dictionary, it should just pull up right there, and then you just double click dictionary, and it's right there. I just do a search accept, and then it pulls everything in. Can you give the contact info? Chris, are you still showing the screen? My contact information is right there at the bottom on the screen, bpowell@dataminsights.com. Okay, Kelly, I must not have access. Kelly, what do you mean by I must not have access? Oh, best place to view the data dictionary. Okay. Yeah, you might want to look and see if you've got access to it, because it is there. It is in 11.3, and that's what I've been using. I just went and looked it up and found it, and I've been using that data dictionary to find my tables.
So it looks like we're pretty close to wrapping up. Are there any other last-minute questions that we can answer for anyone?
Okay, if not, we sure appreciate everybody coming on board. Hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of what we've done to develop these reports. Everybody kind of does something different, and we're not here to talk anybody into one thing or the other. This is just what we've done, and it worked out really well for Bonneville County. We do just have a little questionnaire at the end, so if you don't mind just answering that would be great. And other than that, have a great week.
Yes, and Kelly, we will be sharing out this webinar to anyone who's registered to the webinar, and so you can review this after the fact as well.
Thank you.